Welcome from Berlin, everybody, at the Dystopya Festival in Istanbul 2021. And many thanks to Selçuk Artut for inviting us. Of course, FM Einheit and myself appreciate a lot that you want to listen to our wild acoustic montage, originally hosted by Music Eterna in St. Petersburg, the platform of great Greek composer and conductor Theodor Kourentsis. They will and should sound strange, if not alien, to you, at least occasionally. Confronted with a pandemic, you have at least two alternatives. You can fall into a long, deep sleep, if you can afford it, or you can use the experimental space that opens up in highly destabilized situations like this, think about unusual measure, and unfold them. Radio FM, radio free modulation, how we call the project, is such an unusual activity. Grown out of an economy of friendship, it brings together poets, philosophers, musicians, theater people, scientists, artists from different fields who share something important. Don't accept the odd world how it is. Believe in permanent changes, like it is deeply rooted also in the deep time culture of Turkish civilization. The acoustic form we are creating together is extremely heterogeneous inside, between discourse, poetry and trash, artificial intelligence and body thinking, beautiful melodies and crashes of sound, noise, deepest melancholy and agitprop gestures. We are diving through our archives or write completely new pieces. To prevent a complete fragmentary whole, everything is held together by a strong compositional and rhythmical heart, the musician, composer, and sound researcher FM Einheit. Meanwhile, we cooperated in 22 episodes, starting thematically with radio as a medium and going at the moment through the topic of voices for episode 23, which is also our thematic focus for the Dystopya Festival. What you can hear at the exhibition is a montage of attractions focusing completely on the voice and nothing but the voice. Just a few fragmentary thoughts on this topic. 1. The German word for voice is Stimme. The source is not certain, but most likely it comes from the Greek word for mouth, stoma, or the even older stammer, meaning mouth of an animal, definitely with a close relationship to throat. For oistomos means speaking beautifully, which is easily understood as having a fine voice, and also means literally having a lovely mouth. Voice and mouth obviously belong together, as do mouth and tongue. There are endless variants of the tongue's action, for example, moving up quickly to touch the roof of the mouth, moving forward, moving up and down. The membranous tongue, that is the tongue as membrane. The larynx is our inner mouth. It has several tongues. These are the vocal cords. Their length co-determines how high or low a voice is. The human vocal apparatus consists of three parts. The tongue, that is the vocal cords of the larynx. The windpipe or trachea and the bronchial tubes, where air is put under pressure by the respiratory muscles. The embouchure that is, the various cavities of head and throat above the larynx. There are, amongst many others, chest voices and falsetto voices, clear voices and deep voices, head voices and countertenor voices, whispering voices or screaming voices, closed and hoarse voices, as well as the infinite variations between speaking and singing voices. In singing, the natural human voice is controlled to a great extent by glandular products, particularly of the sexual glands. It is dependent on international secretions or endocrine gland function. Voice, mind, and sexuality are joined in a permanent state of correspondence. Affects are things belonging to the endocrine glands and the nervus sympathicus, wrote Carl Ludwig Schleich in his book The Control Mechanisms of Thought in 1916. As defined by Schleich, endocrine secretions are the juices produced in various organ systems by an organ's embrace of the nervus sympathicus, which are responsible for all specific functions. The nervus sympathicus, which is under the solar plexus that lies below the diaphragm, was regarded by the ancient Greeks as the seat of the soul. Without it, there would be no glandular function. One could describe the glands as juice-producing centers in the structure of the body that are stimulated and controlled by the nervus sympathicus. So far, nobody has determined whether the body also has a nervus antipathicus. 2. Time. The voice has an existence that glides between the three time figures, well known from ancient Greek mythology. In the moment that the voice articulates, it becomes chronological. In its pneumatic breath, ion is present. However, in art and the media, the voice's strongest ally is kairos. In successfully weighing up at the cutting edge as time that we can organize as active time, as an opportunity that must be grasped, as a zero place that is found in the codices of the Mayas in a countless variations of the form of an open mouth. When a voice starts to speak, this is the decisive moment that determines sympathy or antipathy, truth or lies, love or hate, much more a decision than an occasion. When a voice begins to speak or to sing, this is the most active use of the voice. This is where the uniqueness and thus the kairos element is expressed. For example, when a vowel is articulated, the door of the larynx is thrown open and gives rise to a short explosive sound inside. This is certainly something to be avoided when using a microphone. To articulate a quieter vowel sound, the vocal cords are tensed and only so far apart as is necessary to produce the intended sound. That is, the cleft is not completely closed. In this case, the voice is preceded by a quiet sound, observed for the first time experimentally by the Czech physiologist Purkinje in Krakow in 1836, which he named quiet breath, leki czuć. 3. Body sexuality. Transferred into a package of data, you cannot hear the voice. In this form, you can only write or read it. If you want to make it hearable, you have to transfer it into an analog body again. The body is the resonance for the voice. It is impossible just to project it in a 2- or 3-dimensional way. The voice articulates itself from inside the body, like through a mask, sounding through the interface of the body. Person, person, comes from the Latin personare, which means exactly, sounding through. Cries and moaning are the first expressions and signals of unconscious sexual desire. According to Freud, sexual desire develops first in the mouth. According to this, preliminary cries and moaning are a stimulation of the erogenous zones of the mouth, a kind of masturbation, an autoerotic satisfaction of superfluous sexual energy. Thus, even the greatest arias by Mozart or Verdi are merely carefully cultivated and formed sounds of desire, cosmetically prepared and trained sounds of the original moans. In humans, the larynx is clearly gender-specific. There are gender differences in the function of the larynx, and this differentiation is an indication of how sexual differences have the effect of attracting and stimulating. The development of a voice is essentially dependent on various hormones. However, the sexual glands not only have the function of influencing the sexual characteristics of the larynx, but also of maintaining them in their mature state. Allow me a final remark on what we are doing here. Telematics means a mode of communication in which the message is removed from the body of the messenger. Not only do messages independent of the body of the messenger travel much faster through the telematic networks, they also become ubiquitous, are everywhere at once. In this way, they establish a phenomenon of the rational that resides outside the body, which can therefore be deemed an artificial intelligence. In the system of artificial intelligences, viruses rank among the tactics, perhaps even the guarantors of effectuation. The minute we leave the highly secured non-terrain of the virtual and enter into the atmosphere of the rumbling, oscillating, uncontrollable real, the intelligent entity exposes itself. That is not only its greatest risk, it is also its greatest fortune. The mouth comes into being with the scream, wrote dramatist Heiner Müller in his Night piece.